What if I told you that thousands of seniors in their 60s and 70s who practice one specific exercise just a few minutes a day reduce their risk of falls by more than 40% and regain measurable leg strength within 2 weeks? It sounds unreal, but a 2019 study published in the Journal of the American Geriatrics Society found that there is one exercise you need to master after 60 that dramatically improves balance, mobility, and lower body power in older adults. And these findings matter because loss of strength is one of the fastest accelerating changes after 60. According to research from the National Institute on Aging, nearly 1 in 3 seniors experiences significant muscle loss that directly affects walking, balance, and independence. But this is not a permanent decline. It is something we can change using one essential exercise we will reveal in just a few minutes. And as always, Japan's oldest doctor is guiding us. Welcome back to the Senior Health Podcast. Doctor, how meaningful is this conversation for seniors right now? It simply matters deeply, John, because many older adults believe weakness and instability are simply part of aging, when in reality the body is asking for a very specific signal to stay strong, balanced, and confident without strain. I can feel that immediately. Just before we started recording, I was reviewing research from Harvard Medical School that challenged some long-held assumptions about strength loss after 60, and it left me with the sense that there is a missing piece most seniors have never been taught. And that is true. Sometimes what's missing is not effort, but understanding. Before we begin, comment A1. If you are afraid to lose independence later in life, this episode could slow this process for decades. I hear from so many seniors that the hardest part is not pain, but the quiet fear of losing confidence in their own legs. You're right, John. This is a common experience among my own patients, too. But strength does not disappear suddenly. It fades quietly when the body stops receiving the signals it needs to stay awake and responsive. After 60, muscle tissue becomes more sensitive to inactivity, and even small gaps in use can lead to faster loss than most seniors expect. It is not failure, it is biology asking for attention. That lands deeply because so many people after 60 tell me they are still moving, still walking, still busy, yet something feels different underneath. There is this sense that effort no longer translates into strength the way it used to. Yes, and that confusion creates fear. Walking is valuable for the heart and mood, but it does not challenge the muscles enough to protect them from age-related decline. The nervous system also changes with age and without clear strength signals. It slowly forgets how to fully activate the muscles that keep us upright. This is why balance weakens and why standing up from a chair begins to feel uncertain. That really reframes it for me because it sounds less like something breaking and more like something going quiet over time. Yes, and here is the hopeful part. When we give the body the right kind of movement, even briefly, it responds quickly. There is one category of movement that speaks directly to both muscle and nervous system at the same time, and it restores confidence faster than seniors expect. That makes me pause, because confidence in movement really does shape how seniors live day to day. So before we dive into the first exercise, when you mention one category of movement, what kind of signal are you talking about? And why does it matter more than all the other things seniors are already doing? Let me explain it this way. The body responds best to movements that feel essential, not optional. One category of movement reminds the brain how to stand, sit, steady itself, and rise again. And those are actions seniors depend on every single day. That really resonates because it sounds less like exercise and more like restoring a basic life skill. Exactly. And this is where many seniors get misled. They try too many exercises thinking variety will protect them, but the nervous system responds to clarity. In fact, a long-term Japanese study found that seniors who repeated simple stand and sit movements preserved strength and balance far better than those doing multiple light routines. When one movement supports daily survival, the body adapts fast. I hear that a lot in seniors who say they are stretching, walking, even doing light routines, yet still feel unsteady or weaker than they expect. It makes me wonder if they are doing good things but not the one thing that truly speaks to their body. Yes, and this is the key here. There is one exercise every senior after 60 needs to master that trains strength, balance, coordination, and confidence all at the same time. Most seniors already perform a version of it every day without realizing it can be strengthened. That makes me lean in because if it is something many people are already doing, it feels both accessible and powerful. When you say it can be strengthened, what is that exercise and how should seniors begin to think about mastering it safely? Okay, let's dive in. This number one exercise is standing up from a seated position and then sitting back down with control. It sounds ordinary, but it is one of the most revealing and protective movements a senior can practice. That immediately surprises me because it is something every senior does many times a day without thinking about it. And yet it also feels like the moment when many seniors first notice something has changed. Yes, and that is exactly why it matters so much. This single movement asks the legs, hips, core, and balance systems to work together just like real life requires. When practiced with intention, it becomes a conversation between the brain and the body that restores strength and confidence at the same time. Right? That sounds interesting. In fact, the introduction study you mentioned, published in the Journal of the American Geriatrics Society, followed older adults between the ages of 65 and 85 who practiced controlled sit-to-stand-to-sit exercises several times a week. And like you said, within just 2 weeks, participants showed measurable gains in leg strength. And over time, their risk of falls dropped by more than 40%. Yes, exactly. So remarkable, isn't it? It is. And what stood out most was that these improvements didn't come from heavy weights or intense workouts. They came from restoring coordination. The nervous system simply relearned how to organize the movement. That really reframes it because it suggests seniors don't lose strength first. They lose coordination and trust, and the strength follows. Yes. And when that trust is restored through a familiar daily movement, the body responds quickly. Not because it's being pushed, but because it remembers what it already knows how to do. That makes a lot of sense, especially when I think about how often seniors mention struggling most with chairs, couches, or getting out of a car. But note that this is where safety and mindset become essential. Seniors should never think of this as pushing or forcing the body. It is about moving slowly, staying supported, and letting control come before effort. I can already feel how reassuring that framing is for someone listening at home. Yes. But before we go any further, there is something important I want to say. When seniors approach this movement the right way, it does not just build strength. It rebuilds trust between the mind and the body, which many quietly lose after a fall, an injury, or a scare. That trust is often what determines whether seniors move freely or hesitate. That really stays with me because hesitation alone can change how someone lives in their own home. Precisely. When standing up becomes deliberate instead of fearful, posture improves, balance steadies, and confidence begins to return. But that only happens if the movement is done with care, not rushed or forced. I can hear seniors listening and thinking, I want that confidence back. And this is where most guidance goes wrong. Seniors are often told what to do, but not how to feel while doing it. Before we talk about repetitions of progress, we need to talk about safety, support, and control. That feels like the right place to slow down and get practical. Because when seniors learn to perform this movement safely and correctly, everything else builds naturally. From there, the body responds quickly when it feels protected. And once that foundation is set, strength follows without strain. So, how should seniors actually begin this movement in a way that feels safe, supportive, and confidence-building from the very first attempt? Well, let me explain it step by step. You should begin by choosing a sturdy chair and placing it behind the legs so there is always something reliable to return to. The feet should rest flat on the floor about hip-width apart, and the hands can lightly touch the chair or a nearby surface for reassurance. The goal at first is not depth or effort, but feeling steady and in control through the entire movement. That already feels calmer because it takes the pressure out of doing it perfectly. Exactly. Now, Here is where details matter. As seniors begin to lower themselves, I ask them to count slowly to 3 in their head. 1, 2, 3. This slow count guides the body down with control instead of dropping into the chair. When they touch the chair, they pause briefly, just long enough to feel steady, then stand back up using the legs and hips together, breathing normally. That makes it feel very clear and manageable. I imagine seniors listening and wondering how much is enough to start with. For most seniors, 5 repetitions is enough to start. Not 10, not 20, just 5 slow, controlled movements once or twice a day. The goal is not fatigue. The goal is to remind the body how to move with confidence. Again, over time, as the movement feels easier, they can gently build up to 8 or 10 repetitions, but only when the body feels ready. That sounds respectful of where seniors actually are, not where they think they should be. Yes, and I want to emphasize this. If the movement ever feels rushed, shaky, or exhausting, that is the body asking to slow down. A few careful repetitions done well are far more powerful than many done without control. That really helps, because seniors often think more is always better. And before we move on, there is one small habit during this movement that quietly causes strain if it goes unnoticed. Once seniors understand that, everything about this exercise becomes easier and safer. That really helps because it gives seniors permission to move with confidence instead of pressure. What stands out to me is not what seniors do wrong, but what they rush past. Many lower themselves into the chair as if the goal is simply to get it over with. In that moment, the knees take over, the hips disengage, and the body loses its natural coordination. The movement stops being shared work and becomes a sudden drop. That helps me understand why seniors describe it as uncomfortable rather than challenging. It sounds like the body never gets a chance to organize itself properly. Exactly. When the body feels surprised by the movement, it responds with tension. Balance tightens, breathing shortens, and the nervous system steps in to protect. Seniors often think this means they are weak, when in truth, the body was never given time to participate. With patience, the same movement can feel entirely different. That distinction between surprise and participation feels incredibly important. And this is where things begin to open up. Once seniors learn to slow the descent and let the hips lead, the strain eases, and confidence starts to return almost immediately. That makes me curious about how seniors can adjust this movement as they get stronger without pushing past what feels safe or appropriate for their bodies. What I notice first, John, is when seniors stop asking if they are strong enough and start paying attention to how the movement feels. That shift tells me the body is beginning to trust itself again. That really resonates with me because it suggests improvement shows up quietly before anyone would ever call it strength. Exactly. That's why progress should follow comfort, not ambition. Some people notice they rely less on their hands. Others feel calmer as they lower themselves. These changes aren't forced. They appear when the movement becomes familiar again. That reframing makes progress feel safer and much more personal. And this is what I want seniors to hear. Once familiarity returns, the body begins asking for rest just as clearly as it asks for movement. I have one very important question before we close off. How often someone should practice this without drifting into overdoing it? That's indeed an important question. For most seniors, I suggest practicing this movement 2 or 3 times a week. That gives the muscles and nervous system space to respond without becoming overwhelmed. Rest days aren't lost time there when rebuilding happens. That's reassuring because many seniors worry they're falling behind if they take a day off. And this is where things quietly go wrong. When people try to do this every day too soon, fatigue builds and confidence slips. Strength returns faster when effort is balanced with rest. The goal isn't to do more, it's to do enough, then let the body respond. That really challenges the idea of pushing through fatigue instead of listening to it. As we close, how would you like seniors to think about this movement in daily life, not just as exercise? I want them to see it as a quiet companion, not a task. Each careful stand and sit reminds the body that it is still capable, still trustworthy, still alive. That stays with me. It turns something ordinary into an act of self-respect. Now, to everyone listening, if this conversation resonated with you, take a quiet moment tomorrow to begin. And please like, share, and subscribe. Oh, and watch this next video right now. Yes, please. We've picked this one especially for you.